Respected Secretary Sir, TSWRAS, Dr. Praveen Kumar IPS Garu, Joint Secretary, Dr. Praveen Mamidala Garu, OSD, Bhanuprakash Garu, JCO South, Rajni Madam Garu, and today's chairperson of the event and dynamic principal, Dr. Arundhati Garu, and today's speaker of the day, Dr. Chandrasekhar Balla Garu. My dear colleagues, delegates, students, I invite you all to today's webinar on applications of calculus. Now, I would like to introduce today's eminent and vibrant speaker, Dr. Balla Chandrasekhar Garu, Associate Professor, Department of Mathematics, KL University. Sir has done his schooling and intermediate education from Yadadri Bhuvanagiri district, BSc from Osmania University, Hyderabad, MSc from Kakatiya University, and has acquired his PhD in computational fluid dynamics from Osmania University. Madam, please, I request any one of you to record the event, ma'am. I have not recording. Please record the event, ma'am. And has acquired his PhD in computational fluid dynamics from Osmania University. Sir has been working in various reputed institutions across Telangana from past 16 years. Even Sir has a research experience of 10 years and guided many students for the research programs. Dr. Chandrasekhar Sir has many achievements to his credit. Few of them are: Sir secured first rank in Kakatiya University MSc Mathematics entrance test in the year 2001. Sir has been awarded with CSIR Junior Research Fellow and qualified in NET December 2010. Sir has also qualified GATE 2011 with a All India rank of 33. Dr. Chandrasekhar Sir has published more than 23 research papers in various SCI Index and Scopus Index journals. Sir is a life member of Indian Society of Theoretical and Applied Mechanics and also a life member of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana Society of Mathematical Sciences. Sir has been an invited speaker and a resource person for a 5-day national webinar on mathematics and statistical tools at applied level, organized by Department of Mathematics, YIMS, Palakkad, Kerala. Sir has also been an invited speaker on mathematics with MATLAB in the faculty development program at Vigyan Bharati Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. Chandrasekhar Sir, to his credit, has a patent on computational fluid dynamic based model for thermal monitoring and control of data centers. And I must tell you that which is achieved by very few people in the field of mathematics. Sir is a reviewer for more than 10 journals and has more than 250 Google Scholar citations, and also been an organizer for various faculty development programs. Sir has many more achievements to his credit, but due to time constraint, I have only listed very few. With these few words, now, on behalf of TSW RDC Women, LB Nagar, Department of Mathematics, welcome Dr. Chandrasekhar Balla Sir to deliver his lecture on applications of calculus. Welcome, sir. Over to Chandrasekhar, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your nice introduction, Dr. P. Kavita Garu.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Respected Secretary, Telangana Social Residential Education Institution Society, Dr. Praveen Kumar IPS, and Joint Secretary, Dr. Praveen Amidala, Honorable JCO, TSW RDCS South Zone, Dr. P. Rajni Garu, Honorable Chairperson, Principal, Telangana TSW RDC LB Nagar, Dr. V. Arundhati Ma'am Garu. So it's my privilege to be a part of this great program of webinar. I must thank the organizers, Dr. P. Kavita and Dr. M. Prabhuna, for giving me this opportunity. Madam, can I share my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You can share.
Madam, is my screen visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So today's topic is applications of calculus. Because we are the BSc graduates, we have been using the calculus in many fields in our graduation and after the graduation, the higher studies and after the in applications also. So we must know what are the applications of calculus. In our day-to-day life, we use the calculus, but sometimes we recognize and sometimes we don't recognize that these are the applications of calculus. So now I'm here to throw some light on the applications of calculus because there are huge applications. The time will not be sufficient to explain all the applications. I will throw some light so that the student community or the faculty community can understand the main applications of the calculus. So what is calculus and who developed it? So coming to the history of the calculus, calculus is a branch of mathematics that involves the study of rates of change. So in the universe, there is a change. In the universe, if you take any object, suppose one object is at one place at some time, and after some other time that is at some other place. So there is some rate of change. Suppose an ice cube is taken, and if we wait for some time, it starts melting. So there is a change in the shape of the ice cube also. So that means with respect to the time, there is a change in many quantities. So in order to measure or in order to study the rates of change in any quantity, the calculus is a branch which deals with the rates of change. So calculus was first developed in the 17th century by two mathematicians actually. One is Gottfried Leibniz and Isaac Newton. So actually, still today, this question is an unanswered question. That is, who developed the mathematics first? Otherwise, who was the father of calculus? So this is still it is an unanswered question because we give the credit to the two mathematicians. One is the Gottfried Leibniz and other one is Isaac Newton. So Newton first developed the calculus and applied it directly to understand the physical systems. Whereas the Leibniz independently developed the calculus and notations which we are using today also. So the Leibniz developed the notations and used in the calculus that we use today. So therefore, the credit is given to both of them. Still, there is a debate that who is the father of calculus, but we give the credit to both of them, Gottfried Leibniz and Isaac Newton. So we can get some kind of encouragement by seeing their pictures. Whereas the first one, the left one is Leibniz and the right one is Newton, and who are responsible for this calculus. Calculus means it is divided into two parts. Means we can divide according to the topics. We can divide it into two parts. One is the differential calculus and the other is the integral calculus. So the differential calculus is concerned with the study of the rate of change, as I explained. It is the rate of change of functions with respect to their variables. So if there is any function, means it is a function means it is dependent on one variable. As long as the variable changes, the function value must change and it must be continuous. Then its differentiation exists. So the differential calculus is the study of rate of change of functions with respect to the variables, especially through the use of the derivatives and differentials. The derivative is nothing but it is the slope of a line on the graph. It is the slope of a line on the graph. We find the slope of a line by calculating the rise over the run. Next, the second part is the integral calculus. Integral calculus, by contrast, seeks to find the quantity where the rate of change is known. Where the rate of change is already known, we use this integral calculus to find the sum, otherwise to find the total area under a curve. So such as areas or the lengths of the curves or the volumes. So this is one important branch, integral calculus, and the first one is the differential calculus. So in the differential calculus, these are the main topics which I want to explain today. One is the limits, continuity, differentiation, mean value theorems, Taylor's and Maclaurin series expansions, and applications. Applications involve maxima, minima, radius of curvature, curve tracing. So, in order to define the differentiation, there must be a function. There must be a function, and that for that function, limit must exist, and it must be continuous. It must be continuous. So we should know the limit concept and continuity definition. Then only we can enter into the differentiation. When it is differentiable, then only we will get into the applications of integration and also the differentiation. So first, I'll go to the limits. So before that, what are the topics in the integral calculus? Coming to the integral calculus, definite and indefinite integral, proper and improper integrals, double and triple integration, and the applications of these integration, length of an arc, surface area of the revolution, volume of revolution, and then combining the differentiation and integration concepts, we have ordinary differential equations, then partial differential equations, and applications of ODE and PDE are the main final robust applications. So first of all, what is the limit of a function? A real number L is said to be a limit of function f of x if for given epsilon greater than 0, there exists a delta greater than 0 such that modulus of f of x minus L is less than epsilon whenever 0 less than mod x minus L less than delta, then we write limit extends to a f of x is equal to L. So here simply we can say that as long as x lies between a delta neighborhood of a, the f of x f of x lies between the epsilon neighborhood of L. If this property is satisfied, then we say that L is the limit of the function f. So we can write in this form: limit extends to a f of x is equal to L. So we can find this limit in two approaches. One is the right hand side approach and left hand side approach. So if we find this limit from right hand side, we call it as a right hand limit. A limit extends to a plus f of x equals to L, and limit extends to a minus f of x equals to L is the left hand limit. Whenever both are equal, then only we say that the limit exists and the limit value is the L. So just I need from the student participant the answers of these questions. Either they can type the message, means the answer of the message in the chart. Please see these questions. First question is limit extends to 1 x square plus 3x minus 2. What is the answer of this? And the second one is, okay, what is the answer of the first one? Can any students, can I have some answers from this so that I can elaborate?
2, sir.
1, 2, sir.
Yes, sir. You can type instead of speaking. You can type. Good, good. Yes, sir. It is 2. The first one is the 2. And the second one, if f of x equals to mod x by x, if x not equal to 0 and 0 otherwise, what is the limit of the second one? So what is the limit of the second one? And similarly, what is the limit of the third one? What is the limit of the fourth one and fifth one? Third one is 0. Third one is 0. No, third one is 0 by 0. Third one is not 0, 0 by 0. Na?
Hey, set box.
The third one answer is 4 by some student. Pooja. So yes, 4 is the right answer. So if you look at this, just if you look at this, the first one answer is 2, as you said, right? The second one is the limit does not exist. Why for the second one limit does not exist? If you calculate the left hand limit, when x approaches 0 from the left hand side, then mod x value becomes minus x. Then what happens? Then minus x by x is a minus 1, whereas the right hand limit is a plus 1. So right hand limit and left hand limit both are not equal. So therefore the limit does not exist in the second case. Whereas in the third case, the answer is 4, because the numerator x square minus 4 can be written as x plus 2 into x minus 2. So x minus 2 can be cancelled out, and in the x plus 2 you can substitute the limit.
Yes,
It is
sir.
a 4. Right. The fourth one is limit extends to infinity 1 plus 1 by x whole to the power x. The same power x is there. The power x raised to 1 plus 1 by x. So its answer is Z. For this we have a lengthy proof. Just we are taking it as a formula. And limit extends to 0, sin x by x is equal to 1. So because whenever we get some 0 by 0 form, we have to use the L'Hospital's rule and we have to find the limits. So once after, when the limit exists, then we go to the definitions of continuity. So please look at this. What is the definition of continuity? A function f of x is said to be continuous at x is equal to a if limit extends to a, f of x is equal to f of a. When after the limit exists, the limit must equals to the functional value. Limit must equals to the value of the function at that particular value. So then it is called continuous. Now discontinuity. If the limit does not exist, or if the limit is not equal to the functional value, then we say discontinuous. So therefore discontinuity is of two types. Discontinuity is of totally discontinuity of first kind, discontinuity of second kind is there, and then removable discontinuity is there. So there are three types of discontinuities. The first one is removable discontinuity. A function f of x is said to have a removable discontinuity at x is equal to a if limit extends to f of x exists but not equal to a. Limit exists but it is not equal to f of a. Limit exists but not equal to f of a. In such a case, it is a removable discontinuity, because whatever the f of a value is, suppose if you replace the f of a value with the limit value, then the discontinuity will be removed. So it is called removable discontinuity. Now the second one, if both limit extends to a plus f of x and limit extends to a minus f of x, that means both left hand limit and right hand limit exist, but they are not equal. Then f of x is said to have jump discontinuity, or it is a discontinuity of first kind. Discontinuity of first kind is known as jump discontinuity. Means there is a jump between left hand limit to the right hand limit. There is a difference. So that is a discontinuity of first kind. Now discontinuity of second kind is nothing but if any one of the limits does not exist. If any one of the left hand limit or right hand limit does not exist, that means it is infinity. If any one of the limit becomes infinity, that means does not exist, then we say that it is a discontinuity of second kind. So we have to keep understanding these definitions. That means whenever the function is continuous, then only we go to the differentiation. For example, please tell me, I'll show few graphs so that because calculus deals with the geometry as well as the differentiation and integration, so we must be clear at the geometry also. For example, f of x is equal to constant. Let us suppose that constant is 2. So how the graph look like? It is nothing but it is a line parallel to the x-axis. Passing through 2. So now tell me whether it is continuous or not. This is my question. So because there is no break, there are no breaks in the graph. Yes, it is continuous, you can say. If there are no breaks in the graph, whatever you are drawing, then it is continuous, we can say. So it is continuous. Now look at the another one. Suppose y is equal to f of x that equal to x. That means y equal to x. So it is a line passing through the first quadrant and third quadrant, and also from origin. So is it continuous? Yes, y equal to x is also continuous because there is no break in the graph. Suppose you see this. This is the mod x graph. F of x is equal to mod x is the graph look like this. So as long as x is positive, the graph lies in the positive direction. If x is negative also, the value of the f of x must be positive. Therefore, it is not entering into the third quadrant, it is entering into the second quadrant again. So this is the graph of the mod x. Even this is also continuous everywhere because there is no break in its graph, right? Suppose you see this f of x equal to x square. It is nothing but a parabola because x is having even power. It is symmetrical about y-axis. So there are few rules. If x is even power, that means for two values of it is symmetrical about y-axis. That means for two values of x, there is only one value of y because x is having square. For two values of x, suppose if you x is equal to -1, +1 is the answer. X equal to +1 also, +1 is the answer. That means for two x values, only one y value exists. That means it is symmetrical about y-axis. Following. So if you look at this, this is also having no breaks any in the graph. Therefore, it is also continuous everywhere. Suppose see this graph. F of x equal to x cube. X even it is x odd power. X is raised to its odd power. So its graph look like this. Even this is also a continuous. It is continuous everywhere. Suppose x is equal to 1 by x. Suppose x is equal to 1 by x. The graph look like this. Whenever x is a negative, the graph completely lies in third quadrant. When the x is positive, the graph completely lies in the first quadrant. The graph look like this. Following. So here at x is equal to 0, what happens at x is equal to 0? At x is equal to 0, the function is not defined. Therefore, except at x is equal to 0, it is continuous. F of x equal to 1 by x is continuous everywhere except at x equal to 0. So what we call this kind of discontinuity? What we call this kind of discontinuity? So this is called discontinuity of the second kind. This is called discontinuity of second kind. That means what? The left hand limit, right hand limit. Here the limit itself does not exist. Left hand limit or right hand limit at 0 does not. That means it is a discontinuity of second kind. Now look at this. This is a circle, equation of circle. X square plus y square equal to some 3 square is there. So we can take the upper half by this plus square root of 9 minus x square and lower half by minus square root of 9 minus x square. So now the upper half is also continuous in the domain of the circle, that is the upper range, and even the lower half is also continuous. Totally it is a continuous geometry. Suppose if you take this y square equal to x plus 5, y square equal to x plus 5. So this can be written as some y minus 0 whole square is equal to x minus of minus 5. So that means minus 5 comma 0 is the vertex of this parabola. It is a parabola whose vertex is minus 5 comma 0. 0 means y coordinate is 0. That means the vertex lies on the x axis. So therefore this is the figure. If you observe, this is also continuous. Suppose I'm giving this. So the students has to answer this. F of x is equal to 5 minus x square when x less than or equal to 2, and it is x minus 1 when x is greater than 2. Is it continuous or not? Means you can see my question. F of x is dash at x equal to 2. That means it is continuous at x equal to 2 or it is not continuous at x equal to 2. If it is not continuous, it is a discontinuity of first kind or second kind or a removable discontinuity that I need. So any answers? Okay. So I'm not getting any answers. Just we substitute x is equals to 2 in these two. 5 minus x square. That means 5 minus 1. 5 minus 4, it is a 1. Continuous. Yes, I got some answers continuous. So now 2 minus 1 is a 1. So at x equal to 2, in these two different ways, the function is defined now. So in the two ways, we are getting the same answer, that is a 1. So therefore, and it equal to x, at x equal to 2 also the same, the first one is there. So therefore, it should be, yes, it is continuous at x equal to 2. It is continuous at x equal to 2. Good. Now, another example I am giving. Suppose f of x equal to bracket x, it is a step function. F of x equal to bracket x is nothing but step function. So it is like a steps which you can see on the graph. Now, can you tell me at x equal to 0, it is continuous or not? If it is discontinuous, it belongs to type 1, or that means removable discontinuity or discontinuity of first kind or second kind. Okay, I will tell. So at x equal to 0, what happens? The left hand limit is a -1, because if you approach the 0 from the negative x-axis, if you approach the 0 from the negative x-axis, the left hand limit is 0. But the right hand limit, if you approach the 0 from the right hand side, then the right hand limit is 0. Left hand limit is -1, but the right hand limit is 0. So that means those two left hand limit and right hand limits are not equal. That's why it is a jump discontinuity. So it is a jump discontinuity. It is discontinuous at x equal to 0. Now look at this, f of x equal to some sin x by x when x not equal to 0, and its value is 0 when x equal to 1. So can someone tell me what is the answer of this, students? Okay. So we know that the limit of the sin x by x is nothing but 1. So that means left hand limit and right hand limit both are equal to 1. But the functional value is 0. But the functional value is 0. So in such a case, what we have to say? It is discontinuous at x equal to 0. It is called removable discontinuity. Means suppose if you define the function at x equal to 0 as 1, if you define the function at x equal to 0 as 1, then we can make this discontinuous function as continuous. Means the discontinuity can be removed by defining f of x value instead of 0 at x equal to 0, the value is defined as a 0. Instead of that 0, if you define as a 1, then the discontinuity will be removed. This is called removable discontinuity. Okay. Now, once we are familiar with this continuity definitions, now we can enter into the differentiability. Now, first of all, differentiability in a domain and differentiability at a particular point. First one, derivative at a point. A function f of x is said to be differentiable at x equal to a if limit x tends to a, f of x minus f of a divided by x minus a exists. So we know the limit concept. If this limit exists, then we say that it is differentiable at that particular point. Now we have to use the notation. It can be denoted by f dash of a or df by dx, a vertical line like this at x equal to a. It is nothing but limit x tends to a, f of x minus f of a by x minus a. Now a general derivative. A function f of x is said to be differentiable if limit h tends to 0, f of x plus h minus f of x by h exists. So both are the same. Both are the same. We can we can prove that both are equal. This is at a particular point. The first one is at a particular point. The second one is in general. So this is the f dash of x. Now what is the slope? Slope is nothing but rise over run. The rate of change in the functional value divided by rate of change in the variable. Numerator is the change in the functional value and the denominator is the change in the variable itself. So what is the slope? You have to understand the slope, then only we can go with the applications of the differentiation. So slope is nothing but suppose f of x is here and f of x plus h is there. So if we draw a line, and the h is there, so the difference between f of x plus h minus f of x divided by h, as the h tends to 0, what is the value? As h tends to 0, what is the value that gives a direction? That is called a slope. So suppose in the second diagram, we can observe that at a particular point, the slope gives like this. It is a tangent. The tangential direction is given by the slope. Slope is nothing but the tangent, or tangential direction will be given by the slope. So now in your 10+2, in your intermediate, I think you have learned all the formulas of the differentiation and all. So these are all came from the definition, and we have directly learned as a formulas which are useful. Now, what are the applications of slopes in general? especially in economics. So marginal cost, revenue and profit are more important terms when coming to the economics, not only in the economics, in everywhere. Because the question is we need to minimize the cost, we need to minimize the marginal cost, and we need to maximize the revenue. Otherwise, we need to maximize the profit. Always the profit is to be maximized, the cost is to be minimized. This should be the law of any business. Okay, now in economics. So with a low cost, we have to get the maximum revenue. So in such a way, we have to plan. So for that, what we take? The total cost function is denoted by C of x, which is equal to capital F of x plus V of x, where the capital F of x is the fixed cost and V of x is the variable cost. Fixed cost is like some accommodation charges and all. Variable cost means, suppose if you produce 10 items, that depends upon the 10 items. Suppose if you produce the 100 items, the variable cost increases. Suppose if you produce the 1000 items, the variable cost, it is nothing but it varies depending upon the number of articles. So now sum of these two gives the cost function. Now in order to minimize or maximize, we have its differentiations. Suppose when how we will get the marginal cost? Marginal cost is the d by dx of C of x. Marginal revenue, d by dx of R of x. Marginal profit, d by dx of P of x. So the derivative is must to find out all these values. Even to minimize or maximize also, we need the this derivative differentiation concept. So in order to solve the demand function or supply function also, we have to use this. And also another main application in this speedometer and odometer. So nowadays we see any vehicle, there are two equipments. One is the speedometer and odometer. Speedometer measures the instantaneous speed. It is the derivative of the distance with respect to the time. Similarly, the acceleration is the derivative of the instantaneous speed. So it is one of the application of the slope. And nowadays there are many ORR are there and national highways are there. So on the national highways, what is the maximum speed we can go? Only 80 is there. So if you cross the 80, what happens? When you reach the home, you will get an SMS saying that 1000 rupees is the fine. So how it is happening? Is there are a few stations where the security persons will use the radar guns to find the speed of the vehicle. Even the vehicle is moving, they will use the radar guns. It finds the speed. Speed is nothing but distance by the time. So there are some radar waves which touches our object and comes back within the time. So they will know the speed of the radar waves and the time they will calculate, and it will do a few times over some duration of time, and they will decide the speed of the vehicle. Okay, so this is also an application of the slope. It involves the slope definition, maxima and minimum of y of x. So as I explained, suppose in the economics we have to maximize the profit and we have to minimize the cost. So we need to maximize or minimize a one variable function. So how we will do? The points at which dy by dx equal to 0 or f dash of x equal to 0 are called stationary points. First, we need to do the differentiation of the function and we have to equate it to 0. Then we have to solve. We will get the algebraic equations. We have to solve them. We will get the roots. Those roots are called the stationary points. So now at every stationary point, we need to check f double dash of a. At every stationary point, f double dash of a must be checked. If it is positive, if f double dash of a is positive, then we say that f of x has minimum value at x equal to a. Suppose if f double dash of a is negative, then f of x has maximum value at x equal to a. So if you look at the picture, this one is the local minimum and this is a saddle point. Means at which f double dash of a won't give any direction. Means it is not less than 0 or greater than 0. It is equal to 0. Then it is called saddle point. Now these two are the local maximum. So next, for example, we do how to find the minimum of this particular function. How to find minimum of this particular function, and we will verify graphically also. We will verify it. So first of all, I am doing f dash of x is equal to 0. So f dash of x is equal to 0 is nothing but if I do the differentiation of x square is the 2x minus 4 equal to 0. X equal to 2 is a stationary point. Now I'll do the f double dash of x. F double dash of x is nothing but the 2x. So if I substitute the 2 here, there is no x term. No, if you substitute also, you will get the same 2. 2 is a positive. Therefore, it has a minimum value at x is equal to 2. At x is equal to 2, this particular function has the minimum value. It is coming from the calculus. But we have to verify it from the geometry. We have to verify it from the geometry, right? So, if we remember, we know in our 10 plus 2, all types of parabolas, symmetric about y-axis or x-axis, and negative x-axis, negative y-axis, all the 4 kinds of parabola are there. Suppose we can change this given function as this y plus 3 is equal to x minus 2 whole square. By rewriting it, I can write it as y plus 3 is equal to x minus 2 whole square, which is a parabola with vertex 2 comma minus 3, which is a parabola with vertex 2 comma minus 3. So therefore, I can draw in this way. Please observe, this is the graph of this particular parabola. So if you observe, the vertex is nothing but 2 comma minus 3. Yes, the vertex, at the vertex only the value of the y is minimum. At the vertex only the value of the y is minimum. That means at x is equal to 2, the value of the y is minus 3. Yes, it is minimum. In this way, we can verify geometrically also. Now, what is the maximum minimum of a two variable function? So, in the applications, we'll come across to find the maximum and minimum of the two variable functions also. So, for that, what is the methodology? So, first of all, we have to find the partial derivatives. Whenever a function involves two variables, with respect to each of the variables, we can find the derivative. Then we have to use the notation dou f by dou x and dou f by dou y. These are nothing called partial derivatives. Whereas if it involves only one variable, it is called ordinary derivative. That is the df by dx. But here two variables are there. Therefore, dou f by dou x and dou f by dou y. So both derivatives are to be calculated and they must be equated to 0. Then we have to solve those two equations. Then we will obtain stationary points. For example, a comma b is a stationary point. So for every stationary point, we have to do the following procedure. Now I am taking particularly one stationary point. Now r is equal to dou square f by dou x square. S is equal to dou square f by dou x dou y. T is equal to dou square f by dou y square. So these are all the second order derivatives of the function f. So now after finding all these r, s, t at the point a comma b, we have to check these. Rt minus s square is greater than 0 and r greater than 0. If this condition is satisfied, then f of x comma y is minimum at a comma b. Suppose Rt minus s square is greater than 0 and r is less than 0, then f of x comma y is maximum at a comma b. Suppose Rt minus s square is less than 0, then no need to check the r sign. F of x comma y has neither maximum nor minimum at a comma b, and such points are called saddle points. Such points are called saddle points. So in this way, we will find out the maximum value and minimum value of a two variable functions also. Geometrically, the functions look like this. Suppose if you take the first one, the top one and all the peaks, what you can see with the arrow marks, they are the local maximum values, whereas the highest one is the global maximum. If you see the right hand side figure, there are few local minimum values. So this is for two variable functions, maxima and minima. Now coming to the differential equations, an equation involving derivatives of a dependent variable with respect to one or more independent variables is called differential equation. So the differential equations are divided into two types. One is the ordinary differential equations and the other is partial differential equations. The differential equation with only one dependent variable is called ordinary differential equation. For example, velocity as a function of time, some m dv by dt is equal to mg minus kv square. So here velocity is a function of time. We can find the velocity at any particular time. So this is one. This is the differential equation is there. So what is the advantage of getting the differential equation? Just if you know, for one or two initially at time t is equal to 0, what is the velocity? If you know, we can find at some other time what would be the velocity. At some other time, what would be the velocity? That is only the important question. In any some satellite centers or any aeroplane or any vehicles, at some other time, what should be the velocity? We must predict. So further, the differential equation is used. The second one is also an ordinary differential equation, but second order ordinary differential equation. Now, what are the partial differential equations? A differential equation with more than one dependent variables. So here, u is the dependent variable, t comma x are the independent variables. A differential equation with more than one independent variables is called partial differential equation. More than one independent variables is called partial differential equation. For example, the first one, dou square u by dou d square is equal to c square into dou square u by dou x square. It is the heat equation. The heat equation is very important in many applications. Suppose there is an iron, there is an iron rod. Suppose there is an iron rod. What is the heat distribution? Suppose at one place the rod is heated. At some other place, what would be the heat? If what would be the temperature? If you want to calculate that with respect to time and also with respect to the position, what would be the heat temperature? We can calculate by using this partial differential equation. Whereas the second one is also example of this partial differential equation. It is called Laplace equation. So, what are the applications of these differential equations? The differential equations are used in this Newton's law of cooling. And this Newton's law of cooling is used in many practical applications. One is in the to calculate the time of death. In the crime department also we can use this to calculate the time of death by observing a few details like the surrounding temperature and temperature of the body and what is the time after that happened. So what is the Newton's law of cooling? The rate of change in the temperature of the body is proportional to the difference between the temperature of body and the temperature of the surroundings. So only a simple logic is here. The temperature, the rate of change of temperature is proportional to the difference in the temperature and to the
temperature of the body and temperature of the surroundings.
Yes, thank you. So this is, if you want to remove the proportionality constant, we can, if you want to remove the proportionality symbol, we can introduce one constant, that is nothing but k. And why we have taken the negative sign? Because as the time goes on, the difference of the body to the temperature of the surrounding decreases. Therefore, we are taking the minus sign. Now, we can apply the variable substitution method because all the t's we can get one side and all the small t's we can get to the other side, as you see this. Now, taking integration on both sides, now the answer will be log of t minus t0 is equal to minus kt plus c. So log of t minus t0 equal to minus kt plus log c you can write because it is a constant. We can write in any way. So therefore, if you remove the log on both sides, I will get t is equal to t0 plus c into e power minus kt. So here we can find at any time what will be the temperature of the object. By using this logic, we can find the time of death. Now, what are the other applications? See, the same Newton's law of cooling can be used in the manufacturing of cooling system industries. So nowadays in any equipment like laptops or computers or many integrated systems, only the thing is the equipment will get heated. The equipment will get heated as it runs for a long time. So then very challenging task is to reduce the temperature of that particular instrument. So for that the fans are arranged and some others are arranged. So the geometry and everything that is studied by Newton's law of cooling and by taking some other heat conduction equation also. And there are many applications of these differential equations in biology also. One of the example is law of natural growth of bacteria. So how, because the bacteria the number will become multiple times as the time goes on. So how to calculate it? Always the rate of change, rate of increase in the bacteria depends on the number. Initially, suppose if it is 100, after some time it becomes 1000, after sometimes it becomes some other. Means the rate of increase depends on the original number itself. It is again like Newton's law of cooling, but not exactly. It is again solvable by first order differential equation. We will find out this. Now, differential equations are also useful in this epidemic modeling. epidemic model is very important. Nowadays, we are facing with COVID-19 from 2 years. Now it is the second year. Still, the COVID-19 has not left with us. It is there still. So what best we can predict? Only directly we cannot remove the COVID-19 from anywhere. What the calculus will do? At least it can estimate if uh, at least it will give some idea what best we can do in order to reduce this COVID-19 effect. So let us suppose I will explain this. This is also very important. Many researchers also done, and they have given what precautions I have to do after this study. So just I will explain the basic model. Means in any if there is any viral epidemic disease or any diseases, it may be any virus, the model will be like this. This is called SIR model. So S stands for susceptibles, and I stands for infected, and R stands for recovered or removed also we can say. So here the total population is divided into three distinct classes. One is the susceptibles. Susceptibles is nothing but the healthy individuals who can catch the disease. They are the healthy individuals. They can catch the disease if some other infected persons contacts him. He is able to catch the disease. That is the S. Now I is nothing but those who have the disease and they can transmit it. They have already the disease and they can transmit it. That number is the I. Now R is nothing but the recovered or removed from the analysis. Those who removed from the two states, one is the susceptible will go to the infected state, and then he has to go to the recovered state or removed state. Ma'am, now is my voice is clear or still any disturbance is there?
It's breaking sometimes, sir. Okay, now it is okay, sir.
So here ST, IT and RT are there. They are nothing but the number of susceptible, infected and removed individuals respectively at time t. Now what is the model? You can see here. See, this model gives the simultaneous differential equations. We have to assume that ST plus IT plus RT is equal to N. N is the total number of population is equal to the number of suscepted plus number of infected plus number of recovered. The total gives the total number of population. Now, an individual comes into contact with any other individual at the rate of alpha 1 per unit time. So, upon the contact with an contacts the disease with the probability alpha 2. So, the contact is there, the rate of contact is the alpha 1, the rate of infection is alpha 2. So, therefore, what is the ultimate rate of infection is nothing but alpha 2 by alpha 1 you will get. So let us suppose that as alpha. Now alpha is my infection rate. Okay. So now infecteds recover at an individual rate rho per unit time. Now there are two constants here, alpha and rho, where alpha is infection rate and rho is the recovery rate. Okay. Now the differential equations, you can see the three differential equations. dst by dt is equal to minus alpha st into it. dit by dt is equal to alpha into st into it minus rho it. drt by dt is equal to rho into it. So these are all, one is involving the other, because the first equation, if you see, it is there. This is the first one is the differential equation st, but it involves it. Second equation is the differential equation of it, but it involves st again. The third equation is the differential equation in RT, but it involves IT. So these are all called simultaneous differential equations. So all together at a time need to be solved by using the some matrix method. So after solving this, we can able to predict like this. We can able to predict like this. So suppose the recovery rate is increased, then we can reduce the infected people. Okay. Now. So in that way, suppose if you see this graph, the red line shows the infected. So after a few days, we must decrease the infected. Suppose the susceptible is there, the blue line. So after few days, the susceptible number must make constant. And what is this green? Green is nothing but recovered with immunity. The recovered number with immunity must increase as the time goes on. So in such a way, we have to take the alpha 1 and rho. So we can suggest that alpha and rho by studying this model. And the other applications are, suppose there are the vehicles are in such a way that very economic mode vehicles are there and very high cost vehicles are there. Only in the four-wheelers only we can see economy mode and we can see luxury deluxe mode four-wheelers also. So what is the difference between them? What is the difference? The technology is the difference. Suppose if you move in one very good luxurious vehicle, suppose water in your bottle also will not shake. Suppose if you go in some other normal vehicle, the water will fall on us. So what is the thing? So here what happens, suppose if there is any some road breakers are there, so then what happens, we will get some jerk, so instantaneously there is a disturbance in the velocity and there is a disturbance in the mass of that particular moving vehicle. So here, if the spring mass system, there are some spring mass systems are there, so it depends on the oscillations. So even this spring mass systems gives the differential equations. It is modeled as a differential equation of fourth order differential equation. It is there. So means whatever the sudden energy occurred at one end of the spring, so finally it reaches the other end, very small amount of the disturbance reaches to the other end, so that we can reduce the disturbance. So this is also, it is one of the application of the differential equations only. It is in the category of free and damped oscillations. Suppose the applications of differential equations in electrical engineering. So in electrical engineering, some LCR circuits are there. So nowadays, what is happening everywhere? Everything is every electronic item is wireless. Everything is becoming wireless. So there is some remote. There is some connection with some signal to the connection into that particular equipment. So how it is happening? Everything is some circuits are involved in that. Some RLC circuits are there. R stands for this resistance, L is the inductance, and C is the capacitance. So these circuits also governed by the differential equations only, second order differential equations. Here some I, we are taking the I is nothing but the current, and Q is the charge, T is the time, R is the resistance, L is the inductance, and C is the capacitance. So we can find the current in the total circuit at any given time. At any given time, what is the current we can find? So by using this, also we can control this electronic systems, some RLC circuits. These are also governed by the second order differential equations. Now, fluid dynamics or aerodynamics is there. Some satellites are launched, and recently on Mars also NASA landed one rover over there. So that means how it is happening. Everything, the reason being that is the study of the fluid dynamics and aerodynamics. So those equations are governed by, as you can see the slide, they are the partial differential equations involving some many variables, whereas that delta, the del is nothing but nabla, or del is the some Laplacian operator. These are called Navier-Stokes equations, through which we can study the fluid dynamics. Okay, now coming to the integrations. There is a fundamental theorem of calculus. This is the base of the total integration. But the total integration is developed by this fundamental theorem of calculus only. So what is the fundamental theorem of calculus? Fundamental theorem of calculus is nothing but integral a to b f of x dx is equal to capital F of b minus capital F of a. See, after practicing all the integration formulas and after knowing how to do any integration. Now we are learning this fundamental theorem of calculus, then it becomes silly. Yes, we know this, obviously it is true. After doing the integration of small f of x, we will get something called capital F of x. In that, upper limit to be substituted and lower limit to be substituted. That's all. What is new in that? We will think like this. But actually, whatever the process we have learned the integration, that is the second one. First only they found this, and after this they adapted the methodology to find those integrations. So this is the to find the indefinite integral, and this is the definite integral how to find. Now, what is the integration? Integration is nothing but the area under the curve. Integration is the area under the curve. It is nothing but the sum of, suppose you see the vertical bars here. Suppose if you sum all these vertical bars, you will get that this total area. But there is some difference because some vertical bars went upside over this curve. So there is some error. In order to reduce the error, what we have to do? We have to incorporate many rectangular bars here. That means suppose n is the number of the rectangular bars here. As n tends to infinity, limit n tends to infinity, Sn means the sum. Limit n tends to infinity, Sn gives the area. It is denoted by integral a to b f of x to dx. So this is the definite integral definition. Now what are the applications of integration? The applications of integration is nothing but we can find the length of the curve, whether the curve may be any shape, but if a function is defined on that shape of the curve, then we can find the length of the curve, because finding the length of the irregular curve is very difficult. So we can use this integration to find the length of the curve, and also we can find the surface area of revolution. Suppose one curve revolved about the x-axis, suppose as you see in the diagram. Now how to find the total surface area of this one? Because it is not a sphere, it is not a cylinder. For a sphere or cylinder, directly we have some formulas. But it is a unknown curve, means irregular shape curve rotated about the x-axis. So how to find the total surface area of this particular object? So for this also we need the integration. The formula is s equal to 2 pi into integral a to b f of x square root of 1 plus f dash of x dx. Now even we can find the volume also. See, previously we able to find the total surface area. Now this is the formula to find the volume. The volume of the solid obtained by rotating the region about the y-axis is given by. Suppose this is the area. In the first diagram, you can see the area between x equal to a and x equal to b, and the top border is the y equal to f of x. Suppose this area is moved about the y-axis. Now this kind of second figure, this kind of solid is formed. Now how to find volume of such a solid? That is by using the formula v equal to 2 pi integral a to b x into f of x dx. X into f of x dx. Now what are the other applications? The other applications involve the vector calculus applications. So in this we use the electrical flux density, Gauss E dot ds, and magnetic flux density, divergence and pole of a vector. To find this also we use this. And the main applications are in electromagnetism. So electromagnetism means suppose if you take nowadays any electronic gadgets we see, the magnet is there and the electricity, it works with the battery, and also some magnet will be there. So there is some electromagnetism. So that is analyzed by using this some Faraday's laws of induction, Ampere Maxwell's law, Gauss electric law, and Gauss magnetic law. So these are the integral differential equations, and differential form equations are these. Some del cross E bar. Here del is nothing but the Laplacian operator, that is the dou square by dou x square plus dou square by dou y square. They are nothing but the partial differentiation, whereas these are the single integration and double integration are there. Integral form and differential form equations of these laws. So this plays very crucial role in order to in the manufacturing of any electronic goods which involve both electricity and magnetism. So that is called electromagnetism. So if any of the students have any doubts, you can ask me.
Yeah, participants, any questions, please? Yes, ma'am. If no questions are there, we will proceed further. Anyone? Okay. Sir, we are presenting out of time, sir, Chandrasekhar sir,
Yes, thank you.
as there are no questions from the participants. And thank you for giving us a wonderful lecture with all graphical representations and also our institute, TSWRDC LB Nagar, sincerely thank Dr. Chandrasekhar sir for readily agreeing and delivering a lecture in spite of his very busy schedule. Sir, your session is very lively and informative by making our delegates and students to participate, by involving them to solve some problems and give answers. This is very good session, sir. We have enjoyed it. Thank you for enlightening on graphical representation of various problems and especially covering very basic points to applications, almost every topic, especially covering modeling, SR model, which is can be applied for this COVID-19 situations, and many applications in mechanical engineering, and this LCR circuits, fluid dynamics, application in electromagnetism, and even providing all the graphical representations for all the integrals. Sir, it is a very good, sir, I would like to request one more from this platform, that as you are expert in mathematical and statistical tools, we want one more session from you, sir.
Definitely.
And we will not trouble you, but you should definitely promise us to give one more session. Sir, and I also request and I also thank our secretary, sir, Dr. R.S. Praveen Kumar Garu, for a constant motivational force to conduct these type of webinars. Sir always tells teaching and learning should never halt during any situation, especially during these COVID times. This is a very wonderful thought. Sir always tells from every webinar that whatever we take, we get some of the other useful points so that we don't know actually. So this always gives a mind-lighting session to all the people. And I also would like to thank our Joint Secretary, sir, Dr. Praveen Mamdala Garu, who is the person behind this conduction of webinars and readily gives permissions to conduct and motivate our students and faculty, sir. Very constant motivational force, sir. And I also like to thank our OSD, sir, Ban Prasad, sir, and Jetsivo ma'am, Rajni ma'am, for guiding us. And our special thanks are due to our principal, madam, Arundhati Garu, who is vibrant, dynamic, and readily gives permission and encourages at every step to conduct seminars. Ma'am gives a wide scope to faculty, sir, and students really. We Department of Mathematics are very thankful to you, Principal Ma'am. And I also thank our technical team, Swati Ma'am and Anuradha Ma'am, who are continuously overloaded in conducting these seminars and providing technical support for every seminars that we conduct. Thank you, ma'am, specially. And I also thank Prapurna from Department of Mathematics for extending her help in successful conduction of this webinar and making it a great success. And my thanks are also due to my dear colleagues, delegates from other colleges, my dear students. And I thank to participating in this end, and Chandrasekhar sir, and we thank you and a good namaste to you, sir, for delivering a very good session. And with the permission of the chair, sir, do you want to speak any few words, sir?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. First of all, sir, I would like to express my sincere thanks to respected Secretary Sir, Dr. Praveen Kumar Sir IPS, and Joint Secretary Sir Praveen Amidala Garu, and also OSD Dr. Banu Prasad Sir Garu and ZCO P. Rajni Madam Garu, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my views and ideas to the growing up students, because if they know the basic concepts, they will grown up like anything. They can do wonders, because our Telangana social welfare residential education institutions, they are emerging like anything. Means many of the students from these residential institutions are working hard and they are getting very good jobs, and even they are entering into many some. And I would also like to express my thanks to the Honorable Chairperson, dear Principal Madam, Dr. V. Arundhati Garu. And finally, I would like to thank the organizers and who constantly is in contact with me and helping me to give this webinar. Thank you, Madam, Dr. Kavita Madam and Prapuna Madam. And finally, my blessings to the students. All the best. Ma'am. And even thanks for your instantaneous reply for my questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So with the permission of the chair, I conclude this webinar on applications of calculus, sir. Once again, I thank one and all for making this webinar a great success. Jai Hind. Jai Hind.
మేడం ఎండ్ చేసేనా
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.